balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Rumble is not working at all for me. And so here I am, where I am here on everywhere. Anyway, so that being said, well, I apologize, but Rumble, seriously, Rumble itself is just not functioning for me at the moment. I can't even connect a stream to it, and I don't know why. I went back and forth with Rumble earlier today via email, because that's how their tech support goes, and well, let's just say that it wasn't exactly the most, pleasant experience, at least so far, because for whatever reason, they literally are not being able to fix the problem. So, anyway, well, we'll get there eventually. But I am streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and X. And I see there are a couple people there on, let's see, Facebook. And I'm not sure about YouTube. YouTube, I haven't hit just yet. Give me just a second. Let's get this up. And okay. No, I don't see anybody. At least I don't think I see anybody on YouTube yet. All right. Oh, there's a few people. There's a few people over on YouTube. So I apologize, but again, Rumble is just playing stupid today. And no. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight is, oh goodness, I already forgot who's up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see here. Let me just take a quick peek and see if I can tell who is up. Kat. Kat Pekarik is up for tonight's pledge. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Kat as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This land is your land, America the beautiful. God bless America.
And of course, Kat, we appreciate that we appreciate you for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, and address that email, send it off to me, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. If you use your phone, you can use the share option, that's the S-H-A-R-E option, in order to send me that file. And when you hit the share option, you would send it also to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. Tonight, of course, is none other than... Well, apparently I didn't do my key correctly. Let me see here. Where is it? There it is.
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right. Tonight is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And for tonight's drink of choice, like I said, going back to my roots, this was Saturday's drink, and I gotta kind of continue it. Here it is, Jameson Irish Whiskey. And let's get that a little closer. There you go, Jameson Irish Whiskey right there in terms of where it is. That's how I roll. And tonight, it is in this wonderful glass right here. You know, look at that yellowish colored liquid. All right, that is some good stuff. Good stuff for it. Yeah, I know. I see a couple people over in YouTube land that are, you know, anyway. The question came up about when I'm heading home. Saturday's show, this coming Saturday, I should be back home in the studio. Hopefully everything will be working by then in terms of Rumble. So there you go. That is the plan, is for me to be back in the studio on Saturday. All right, let's go and take a look over here on the, for whatever reason, I don't know, Facebook is also causing me issues as well. But I can't see all of the chat in Facebook. Yeah, I know. Jarhead is over on X. And Jarhead is saying that Rumble is a no-go. I know. I tried setting it up, but it wouldn't let me do it. Anyway. All right, enough about that. Let's go ahead to tonight's headline sponsor, which is none other than TGRN. That stands for True Grit Roots Network. That's TGRN.net is our home on the web. Go and check us out. Head on over there to TGRN and listen to us directly through your browser. Right here, all you have to do is go and click on the little play buttons right here in one of the widgets that are shown here on the screen. Or if you want to take us with you, you can download our app for either the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio right here on the App Store or Google Play. And you can download one or both of the apps. They are separate apps, which is fine because maybe you're in the mood for some blues rock. Maybe you're in the mood for some outlaw country. Either way, download both of them and you can take us with you on the go. You can choose which one that you want to listen to at any one given time. Or if you're a bit of a strange individual, maybe you can play them both at the same time. I wouldn't suggest it. Also, don't forget, if you come all the way up here to the top of the screen, you can see where I'm flashing the red up at the very top of the screen. You can see where I am showing you the shop button. You can show your wonderful love for TGRN and Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio and or Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio right here by grabbing one of their swag. One of our swags, or grab them all. I mean, come on, just get everything and then you'll have your entire week covered. You can get t-shirts, you can get hoodies, you can also get caps that are available at shop.tgrn.net. That's shop.tgrn.net. They come in a variety of colors, obviously a variety of sizes to fit your individual personality, size. But collect all of them. Collect TGRN logo, the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio logo, or the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio logo. Collect them all. Go to tgrn.net, click shop, and come here, or go to shop.tgrn.net. That's tgrn.net, our home on the web, True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. Alrighty. And yes, by the way, we should have a pet of the week. She's actually sitting right down beneath me at the moment. We'll get to that by the end of the show. Hopefully I can call her and she'll come over. Anyway, so Trump is in Beijing. That's right. He went to go check out the Chinese. Well, it's his high stakes talks. And of course, because Trump obviously wants to talk about the Taiwan tensions and the trade disputes, probably even the Iran conflict, because of the fact that obviously China gets a lot of its, if not all, a very good portion of its oil from Iran and from the other Middle Eastern countries that are all being affected by the Iran conflict. Well, Trump isn't going by himself. According to this Fox News report, top executives from Apple, Boeing, Tesla, BlackRock, and Goldman Sachs are all traveling with the president. He is set to arrive today. I believe he's already arrived, and they have, rolled out the proverbial red carpet, although red carpet probably means something different in their world than it does in ours. But anyway, the meeting itself comes as a volatile moment for Washington as the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran faces potential breakdowns and following recent military exchanges, of course, in and around the Strait of Hormuz. So, all of that being said, Trump is expected to talk and press Xi on China's economic and strategic support for both Iran and Russia, including oil revenue, dual-use components, and potential weapons transfers. Remember that Trump had claimed a while ago that they had captured a ship within the Strait of Hormuz that was carrying weapons for Iran, headed to Iran. And so he is expected to at least converse about that. Top business leaders are traveling, including, and I've already said about the executive, highlighting the administration's focus on securing economic deals with China alongside strategic talks. The White House has also previewed some discussions on AI, cybersecurity, and China's rapidly expanding nuclear program. And these are areas where officials have acknowledged that there is deep mistrust and limited progress despite ongoing communications channels. Now, I would agree, we really cannot trust the Chinese to do what they say they're going to do. I mean, they're at the center of what would be considered this century's axis of evil across the board. Now, that being said, on the economic front, the administration wants to focus more on targeted trade arrangements, including a proposed U.S.-China Board of Trade that is supposed to help manage commerce in what is considered to be non-sensitive goods. Officials say that the framework could initially cover trade in the double-digit billions, with an emphasis, of course, on sectors like agriculture and aerospace. It's the second meeting between Trump and Xi in this second Trump administration. Their last one being, of course, the face-to-face summit at the Busan summit in South Korea in October of 2025. Now, this is Trump's first state visit to China since his last visit in 2017. So you also keep in mind too that a lot of this, there are probably going to be talks about the tariffs, the tariff escalation, some of the uneasy truces between Washington and Beijing, as both sides are trying to stabilize a trade relationship strained by export controls, rare earth disputes, and retaliatory duties. So this is all stuff that is on the table for the Trump administration heading off to Beijing. Well, of course, one of the biggest things that's going to be talked about is Taiwan, or at least what the Trump administration would like to see talked about is Taiwan. And Taiwan President La Ching-te isn't watching this meeting like a man checking diplomatic weather. He's watching it like the leader of a free island that China keeps trying to isolate, intimidate, and eventually absorb it back in to its fold. Now, keep in mind, remember, the Chinese have never officially recognized the independence of Taiwan. So to the Chinese, Taiwan is not an independent country. To the rest of the world, though, we've all looked at it that way, as an independent company or country. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that, of course, that Chinese leaders understand the ceremony, the leverage, the timing. They also smell weakness when there's blood in the water, which is why Trump is going to go in there and be very much like, going in with, ideally, with a very strong position. He will be utilizing things like what his meet with Vladimir Putin up in Alaska, as an example. So anyway, there's also some question as to whether or not the United States can recover some of the ground lost during the 2021 Alaska meeting between Anthony Blinken, who was Secretary of State under Joe Biden, as well as Jake Sullivan, who was also the National Security Advisor under Joe Biden, who sat across from the China top foreign policy official and foreign minister and state counselor. Now, China's open remarks back then turned into a public scolding, and the Biden team looked stunned as Beijing delivered a lecture in front of the cameras. So keep that in mind, that this is going to be a different administration, different positioning sets, different conversations, and we won't be in the same administration in terms of kowtowing to the Chinese, I don't believe. So we'll have to see. And keep in mind that the question whether or not Xi believes that Trump actually wants a public deal so badly that Taiwan becomes a bargaining chip in these conversations. Obviously, Taiwan is strategically important to the entire world. As I've pointed out on multiple occasions, almost every single electronic device that is in existence today, that means roughly 90% of them, all have some level of Taiwan technology within them. And so, we'll have to kind of see what the heck happens. So, obviously China keeps claiming Taiwan as its territory, even though it's never actually ruled Taiwan. They keep claiming it. And so the big question is going to come into play in terms of whether or not America, who recognizes Taiwan as an independent company, can convince the Chinese, let's say, to what's going on. Well, China, to its effort, in typical fashion, preceding this meeting, has sent out, the Chinese state media has sent out a couple of memes on X. And these are designed to be, well, let's just say warnings. For an example, if you take a look at this one, this is a meme that was sent out by the Chinese state media that essentially pointed out the 4 red lines that China says are not on the table. Because remember what I said is that we had the American contingent. These are the things that they want to talk about. This is where the Chinese are saying, no, we're not going to talk about these things. And as you can see on the screen, they're talking about the Taiwan question is number 1. So obviously, they don't want to talk about Taiwan at all. They also don't want to talk about democracy and human rights issues, which we all know that the Chinese have been violating human rights, especially those of the Uyghurs and those of Falun Gong and some other groups within China. And they don't even want to talk about that. They also don't want to talk about paths and political systems. In other words, what I believe they're meaning there is essentially they don't want to talk about democracy in China. They don't want to talk about Americanism or American ideals and things of that in China. They also don't want to talk about China's development right, meaning their right to develop things such as nuclear weapons or any other kind of technology or development. Now, you recall under Joe Biden's regime, you had balloons that were traveling over our country that came from China. You had Chinese drones that have been all over the United States, and so on and so forth. So the question whether or not those 4 red lines are going to get crossed by the Trump administration, well, that's a really good question. But that's not all that the Chinese put out in terms of a question about what's going on, because the Chinese state media also posted on X well, let's call it a meme of decorum. So the Chinese apparently are attempting to dictate to us the 3 principles that they are looking for. One of them is mutual respect. Well, that's kind of questionable. I mean, they have to give respect in order for us to give respect. They also want to talk about peaceful coexistence. Now, as you know, Trump, if you look at things like what Trump has been doing with Venezuela, what Trump did with Maduro, what Trump is doing with the Iran conflict, the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, all of these things could be relatively tied back to the idea that he is looking to cripple China and China's ability to grow itself and essentially coexist. Now, we know that China does not want to necessarily coexist with America. They want to take over and be, for an example, the world's reserve currency, which is currently being used in oil markets across the globe. They have consistently made this a goal of theirs to try and get us in the US dollar out of that spot. He also are pointing at things like they want win-win cooperation, not win-lose. Now, as you all know, Trump's a deal maker. Trump tries to make deals where Trump, in this case, America, wins. Whether or not the other party loses, that doesn't really matter to Trump. Trump's not looking for a loss in the America First column. He's looking for losses in terms of the other column, whatever other column there might actually be. And so that being said, well, these are some of the principles that China wants to adhere to during these negotiations and talks. We'll have to see what China comes up with or what realistically happens here in China's, in the conversations with China when it comes to this particular case. All right, let me go and take a look. I'm going to go and do a round robin check. Going to see let's see what the chats are saying. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm seeing some people. Yeah, I know Rumble's not working. Yeah. Okay, so all of that being the case, oh, yes, Jarhead says China also doesn't want to discuss how they control their stray cat population. Oh, boy. Really? Really, Jarhead? Okay, I had to read that one on the air. Seriously? Seriously? Anyway. All right. Well, let's change our focus to here in the United States. You know, the more that we start digging into everything that's been going on here in the American way world, the more we start digging into things like the deep state and where the lawfare and everything else comes from, and has been attacking Trump for quite some time. The more we find that, well, there was a bunch of underhanded stuff that was going on under the Biden administration. For an example, this piece in Just the News. Biden secretly set up Trump to be indicted after he leaves office, according to the Operation Arctic Frost memos. Jack Smith's team primed their criminal case against Donald Trump to resume once his presidency ends. So, in the final weeks of Joe Biden's presidency, according to this piece, FBI agents tied to the Justice Department's special counsel, Jack Smith's investigation, memorialized anew their belief that Donald Trump broke the law in contesting the 2020 election and secretly arranged to preserve their evidence until 2030 in memos that raise alarms that they could retrieve or revive their prosecutions after Trump leaves office. Now, you recall that Jack Smith technically suspended the prosecution of Trump, that he dropped the case because of the fact that Trump won the presidential election. Now, if you think that these lefties and leftists are going to allow Donald Trump just to ride off into the sunset without having any type of repercussions, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen here, folks. And unfortunately, the sad part about all of this is that even though Trump leaves office in 2028, I have a bad sneaking suspicion he's going to have to keep his head on a swivel, is how they put it in the military, to keep an eye out for folks and for attackers, people who are trying to take him out. And so these FBI memos and emails closing out the controversial Arctic Frost investigation, which were obtained by Just the News, show that the Bureau chose not to relinquish the evidence it had gathered after Smith went to court to dismiss the charges against Trump, even though that's normal practice for the agents. Instead, they created a preservation order, which basically keeps the evidence in FBI custody for 2 years after Trump's second term ends. That means all the way into 2030. Now, they claimed, according to the memo, that it was necessary to do so because of the ongoing litigation. Now, these FBI memos and emails were obtained by Just the News dating back to early 2025, and they show, or they demonstrate, how the FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors who had been working on the criminal prosecutions aimed at Trump and his allies had worked to close the 2020 election-related case against the incoming president, while also seemingly leaving open the door for the criminal case to be reviewed or revived once Trump leaves office. And again, the assumption being that a Democrat holds the reins at the Justice Department. Now I ask you, and I ask our leftist lunatics that might be listening to this show, who do you think is the more totalitarian? Who do you think is the more likely to be abusing the Department of Justice to go after their political enemies? Do you think it's Trump? I don't think so. I don't believe it's Trump at all. And it's not just because I happen to be a backer of Trump. I just notice things like this. Why would you even go after Trump and try and prosecute him after he is out of office? I mean, the entire point of all these prosecutions and everything else was attempting to make sure that he did not gain office for a second term. Now he's going to be in office, or he is in office for his second term. He's going to be leaving office at the end of his second term. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the crap that the leftist mainstream media has been putting out there that Trump is going to try and stay in office or whatever, because trust me, he left the first time. And the first time he actually had a real compelling reason to not leave office the first time around. But he went ahead and left. And so now you're sitting here looking at all of this and going, well, are we sure that they are going to just let him ride off into the sunset in peace? No, they're not. And that's unfortunate. Because realistically, when a president leaves, unlike Obama, who keeps coming back like a bad rash, the president should just ride off into the sunset and retire and be done with it. Anyway, FBI Director Kash Patel told Just the News recently that the American people deserve to know how this egregious weaponization of power to target political opponents and President Trump in particular. Now keep in mind this, yes, they targeted political opponents, but if you look at the Democrats and you look at everything that they say, they're all about getting Trump. They have no interest to actually putting forth a platform that the American people can get behind. They have no choice they have no drive or desire to try and be the best for the American people. See, it's all about power to them. And Trump came in and questioned their power and is now taking away pillars of that very same power across the board. Anyway, Kash Patel continues and says, we shut down the weaponized CR-15 squad and we're going to keep following the facts until there is full accountability. The FBI exists to protect this country, not to preserve political prosecutions for a future administration. So there you go. Now keep in mind that, again, that Jack Smith case, he dismissed it without prejudice, meaning that they can revive it at another time, provided that the, of course, statute of limitations doesn't run out, which it won't because it's basically paused while he is in office at the time. So anyway, yeah. Now, one of the key closing case documents obtained by Just the News, originating from the FBI's Washington field office, CR-15 team, was dated a couple weeks into Trump's second term on February 5th of 2025, when many of the holdover FBI agents and leaders were still in place. Now, you recall, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel took a lot of hits, took a lot of flack for the fact that they were firing a bunch of agents. Well, this would be why. Because these agents turned into politicized rather than just independent agents trying to uphold the law. They turn into political and politicized weapons against the enemies, the political enemies of the Democrats. So there you go. All right. Well, in speaking about that, yeah, I gotta reorder a couple of things here. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. Well, in speaking along those same lines, so the Biden DOJ secretly setting up stuff. You want to know how badly these people wanted to get Donald Trump? I mean, we all know that they wanted to get him, but I'm talking like, really, how deep down bad did the deep state want to get Donald Trump? Well, here's one example. Do you remember that phone call that they used in order to try and get Donald Trump tried in state court in Georgia? You know, the Georgia election interference kind of thing. Yeah. Where Fani Willis tried to get Trump and a bunch of others on the election interference case. And Jack Smith himself was saying that Donald Trump's phone call with Brad Raffensperger about finding votes actually meant that Donald Trump meant create votes rather than just making sure that Trump's claims about things that were happening in Georgia were actually fully investigated and fully vetted to determine whether or not some malfeasance had actually happened. Well, we now since have learned that Fulton County illegally certified ballots that weren't supposed to be certified. And so because of that, and keep in mind that this entire process, the entire case against Trump, the entire Fani Willis case, the entire Jack Smith case with regards to election interference was all based, for the most part, on a phone call to Brad Raffensperger. Now, the interesting thing about that phone call is, and this was alluded to very early in the process, as to whether or not that phone call may have been illegally obtained. And the reason why is explained in this piece in the Federalist. So the phone call that was used to impeach Trump over the Georgia election was illegally recorded, testimony confirms. Now here's the problem, okay? That phone call, which was recorded by a subservient individual to Brad Raffensperger, was being recorded when that guy, that second in command, was in Florida. Florida, in order to record phone conversations, is a two-party consent state, which basically means that both parties need to be aware, or all parties, I should say, need to be made aware of the fact that somebody is recording, and they need to provide their consent to that recording. Trump never did, and neither did Brad, as far as we are aware. So therefore, because it is a two-party consent state, and Trump was never given the opportunity, nor even asked that whether or not the call could be recorded or not, that means it was illegally obtained. Now, this testimony came from newly released depositions from the Georgia, let's see, where is it? Let's see. Trying to find it here. This is newly released testimony and transcripts that confirms what the Federalist's Molly Hemingway reported back in 2024, that the call itself wasn't just misconstrued, it was actually illegally recorded. Jordan Fuchs, who was Raffensperger's deputy chief of staff, admitted under oath that she had recorded the call while she was in Florida, which is that two-party consent state. It requires all parties on the call to consent to the recording. Now, during the deposition, Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, again, Fani Willis's lover, noted that Fuchs received use immunity to testify before the grand jury, meaning that she could admit what she had done without being prosecuted for any crime. And she admitted to recording the phone call. She also admitted that she immediately leaked it to the Washington Post. And you talk about leakers. Do you remember those leakers we had talked about last night? Yeah. This would be one of them. The call itself was the centerpiece of the Democrats and the propaganda press's Get Trump lawfare. Now, Fuchs also provided another leak to the Washington Post about another phone call from Trump a few days later. The Post admitted its source later and had said that she had provided false information about that second call. So, yeah. Anyway, the Washington Post issued a correction after that second call, saying the Post misquoted Trump's comments on the call based on information provided by a source. That source was Fuchs. Trump did not tell the investigator to, quote, find the fraud or say that she should be or she would be a national hero if she did so. Instead, Trump urged the investigator to scrutinize the ballots in Fulton County, asserting that she would find dishonesty there, which we now know the Election Commission in Georgia, the state election commission in Georgia, did find 300,000 plus ballots that were improperly certified. Now, the thing about it is that several other major media outlets, including NBC, ABC, USA Today, PBS, and CNN, all confirmed the fabricated quotes from the Post's anonymous source by citing their own anonymous sources. See, this is part of the reason why you're looking at Todd Blanche, and Todd Blanche is basically saying, hey, this is, leaking of classified information. We're going to go and start talking to reporters all about this. Well, this would be part of the reason why. You cannot trust the mainstream media anymore. You can't. You just can't. Now, Raffensperger's office and the media they leaked to made it seem as though Trump was actually asking Raffensperger to commit fraud or do something illegal. But as the Federalist Smalley Hemingway pointed out, anyone familiar with the lawsuit knew Trump was saying that his team had already found nearly 150,000 irregular or fraudulent votes and simply needed the Secretary of State's office to actually agree. Now, just that fewer than 10% of them were problematic. To remind everybody, it was less than 12,000 actual votes within the state that went Biden's way. See, the entire state and its electoral college votes was decided by less than 12,000 popular votes. See, what a lot of people in the Democrat Party and these, raging leftists don't seem to understand when they start talking about how the popular vote doesn't elect the president. In a way, it actually does. The problem is not so much that the popular vote isn't tabulated in the same fashion as the electoral college vote is. The problem is the fact that 48 out of the 50 states do what is called winner take all. And so what ends up happening is, based off of the popular vote within that state, the winner does take the electoral college votes, and it's how many states can an individual achieve in the electoral college as to whether or not they actually win the vote. Anyway, By the way, Raffensperger's team, according to Molly Hemingway, further reporting, said that Raffensperger's team kept asserting that Trump's figures were wrong. Trump's legal team kept asking Raffensperger to provide the state data and information that would enable them to see for themselves. But for whatever reason, Raffensperger and his team have never been willing to share their data or reports. So, yeah. Now looking back, hindsight being 2020, you can see where the elections, the Fulton County elections being admonished by Georgia State's Elections Commission for 2020's challenges, let's say, are really, really bringing things into the spotlight down here in Georgia for the elections. Now, all of that being the case, there is a guy. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that this guy is all that, shall we say, is all that reliable when it comes to his communications. However, I tend to think that he probably is a lot more knowledgeable in this next topic that we're talking about with regards to all of this. And yeah, so there we go. All right. Yes, Amy, I am not at home. I am remote. So just taking a look at some of the comments here. So anyway, all right. Okay, let's get back onto it. This next guy, you know, again, I wouldn't necessarily call him reliable because let's be honest, he has lied. We know he's lied. But in this particular case, I believe him. And the reason why I say that is because it isn't going to be possible. You need to understand the entire deep state apparatus, the apparatus that the Democrats have put in place, have been placed there over the span of multiple decades. And I'm not talking about just, you know, the people within government. I'm talking about the people who have all been part of things like the NGOs, for an example, the teachers unions. They're pushing, for an example, pushing of specific agendas within our school system and our educational system. I'm talking about parties that are outside of the government as well that have been working to, in terms of subterfuge and to subvert our government's purpose and goals. See, this is all happening within this conglomerate that we generally call the deep state. And while Donald Trump and his administration has done quite a good job at clearing out some of the riffraff, I still question as to whether or not there still is more to go. And as we've just pointed out with regards to the FBI in particular, it's going to take nothing but time to root out all of the people who are politicized and working for a specific political agenda. Well, John Brennan apparently was up on a, he was on some sort of a podcast, I think. Let's see, what are we talking about here? Where was he? He was on MS Now. Oh, big surprise there. MS Now, and he made a claim. Well, let's just say that claim is sort of, I don't know, dubious at best. Well, anyway, let's just go to him and figure out. We'll listen to what he has to say. Take a listen.
He has succeeded largely in turning DOJ and the FBI into political arms of his political operation. What still exists in the system to slow that down?
I think, as Liz mentioned, there's still a legion of professionals in the law enforcement environment, the Department of Justice, as well as the CIA and other places, the ones who are refusing to follow politically motivated prosecutions, those who are refusing to support any type of political activities on the part of the Trump administration that are inconsistent with the authorities, the responsibilities of the intelligence community, law enforcement community, and Department of Justice.
Now, keep in mind, with all of this in the case, this guy, well, let's just say that he's referring in generics, never really specifying specifically who might be in these cases. Now, that is typical of a long-term intelligence operative, because many times, oftentimes, what they're going to do is they're going to speak in vagaries in order to avoid not only giving away the actual ghost or the actual target, but also in order to cover their own butts, because he doesn't necessarily want to fall into, well, let's just say, the treason trap. But that being said, I'm a little dubious in terms of the fact that I do actually think that we haven't found everybody in the government that is not doing what they are supposed to be doing, which is being, I should say, doing their job regardless of whoever the politician is in charge, who should be focused on nothing but the Constitution and following it as they swear to it when they take their oath of office. And the reason being is because I don't have, this is going to sound bad of me, but I really don't have the hope or the trust in the American populace as a whole, because half of the people don't even understand what is in this little booklet. What is in the Constitution of the United States? What are the proper functions of our government? See, there is a swath of people out there who obviously believe that the federal government is supposed to be your mama, that the federal government is supposed to be your caretaker. And that is simply not the case. That is not what the American federal government was designed to do. And yet, even so, those same people, regardless of how they took that oath, will violate that oath every single time because of the fact that they are pushing a political agenda. And nothing is worse than the number of people who are in government who want to push the political agenda. See, as I said before, it's taken us several decades to get to this point. And believe me, those people bounce around. You recall we were talking in an episode, this was a while ago, but in one of the episodes that we were talking about how these people move from being inside government when the administration's politics favor those individuals to moving outside of government as consultants, still within the same space, but being outside of government. And then when the administration changes hands and the political winds are blowing their way, per se, they move back into government. These people, most of the time, are just recycled over and over and over again, which is part of the reason why Trump won was a bit of a disaster, realistically, and didn't accomplish hardly any of the things that are he really, really wanted to get done. And that's why in Trump 2.0, he's been doing a lot of these hirings and firings and things of that nature, especially when you have people who end up getting tainted or potentially work against him in his desire in order to achieve certain goals for the American people. So there you go. All right. Let's see. What's my next? Oh. So that being said, here is an indication that, well, John Brennan might very well be right in terms of the fact that there are still people within the deep state that are trying to push against the Trump agenda. Take a look at this piece in the Daily Caller. Senior White House official placed on leave after trashing Trump in a sting operation. So apparently this guy, he's a top administration official, was placed on leave. His name is Benjamin Elliston. He's a senior budget analyst and funding manager for the White House. Now, this is where James O'Keefe and his Project Veritas, his stings, if you've ever seen those, they are amazing when the video comes out. But apparently, this individual who has been working for President Trump went and told an undercover journalist that Trump is a, quote, madman who is effing it up for everybody. So Elliston, who has worked at the White House since 2024, according to O'Keefe's reporting, has since been placed on administrative leave. He has no direct access to the president or senior staff and does not work on the White House campus. Such views expressed by the individual are not reflective of patriots who admirably serve in the administration. Now, you kind of wonder why the leftists and the Democrats are sitting here saying that Trump is a madman, Trump is a mess, he is mentally unstable, he is having problems, health issues, things of that nature. Well, this could potentially be why. See, these people, and unfortunately, I mean, when you're dealing with people within government, okay, again, like I said, it's a cycle. They go move out of government when the administration isn't to their liking, or you move into government when the administration is to their liking. And unfortunately, this guy, well, seems to have decided to be like an undercover agent to get inside. Elliston told the undercover journalist that he's a madman. Literally, he's invincible. Nothing can stop him, and that's dangerous. Well, he's right about that much. It is dangerous when you don't have any way to control the individual in charge at the White House. Yeah. Elliston also, in the same interview, criticized Trump's leadership style, calling him erratic and scary. He goes, the way his decisions are so erratic, you would think that he drinks. He doesn't drink, and that's what makes it so dangerous. That somebody could be of sound mind, body totally coherent, and could just be so reckless in their decision-making. That's scary. Elliston apparently also went on to further criticize Trump's foreign policy, speculating that he is intentionally inflating the price of oil to enrich himself and family members who have business dealings in the region. Now, I'm going to argue against that. And the reason why I'm arguing against that is because if you look at Donald Trump in the 1990s, you look at video of Donald Trump in the 1980s, if you look at video of Donald Trump in the early 80s, when he talked about Iran, when he talked about the president, the Carter administration screw up in Iran, he has been the exact same Trump from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s to today on Iran. He doesn't believe that Iran should ever have a nuclear weapon, that we, essentially, America, was weak when we didn't go in and take care of the mullahs, when they took over Iran and took over the Iranian embassy under President Carter. He's never wavered from that position throughout decades, when he very well could have. He could have changed his mind. He could have been offered up more, more information, taken the opportunity to shift his position, but no. He may have shifted his positions on a lot of other things, but Iran has never been in question, ever, anywhere. So, therefore, I don't necessarily believe that Elliston even understands or knows what the heck he is talking about. He is just a political hack trying to get his bones made in terms of this. Now, there's also another person who was in on this sting as well, by the name of Maxim Lott, who is a special assistant on domestic policy at the White House. And remember how John Brennan was saying there are all kinds of people who are in the administration, in the intelligence communities, et cetera, who are all working against Donald Trump. And here is another example of that. So Lott told an undercover journalist, quote, "The decision-making processes are a little bit chaotic." And he said, "I think it's just the overall tone that, the government right now is a little bit uncontrolled. It's not going to fix itself." Now, this same guy was previously a producer on John Stossel's show. He also said that lower level officials occasionally make policy determinations on behalf of the president. Lott said, in theory, everything should sort of come from the president, but it might come from a level below him, where they're like, I think I know the president well enough to say what he would say on this. It's like, yeah, he would want to do that. That would be popular. Then at my level, at 5 levels below or whatever, there's still a lot of discretion to be like, this is clearly like what he would want to do. There's no like, oh, well, this will cost $10 million, but save people $20 million. There's nothing like that. It's just, this feels like a good idea, or the base supports this. All right, just sign. So when the O'Keefe team, by the way, reached out to Lott, he stood by his remarks and said that he does actually remain committed to the Trump agenda. So Lott said in a statement, quote, "I went out with an individual who I thought was a genuine person, but it goes to show how insidious politics in this city can be. Nothing I said was contradictory of this administration, and I remain fully committed to carrying out its agenda." Yet, he did say that it doesn't seem like the president is in charge. They are all there, folks. They are all there. They are all part and parcel of the same blob that we call the deep state. Well, I love Senator Kennedy. I really do. I love Senator Kennedy because he is a voice of reason in a oftentimes unreasonable world. And Senator Kennedy has put forth a bill. Now, do I honestly think that this is really going anywhere? Not really. Because just like with Congress and term limits, just like with the idea of Congress having to, follow the laws that they put into place. Yeah, none of this is really going to make, Congress is not going to vote to cut their own throat. Let's just put it that way. They're not going to vote to shoot themselves in the foot. However, this thing does bring an interesting angle to the whole idea of the government shutdown. As you know, Senator Kennedy had made a bunch of statements, one of which during the last shutdown, one of which being that he believes that Congress should not get paid during government shutdowns. Well, the resolution that he proposed, it actually covers that. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune has teed up a vote on a measure that was proposed by Senator John Kennedy out of Louisiana that basically would prevent senators themselves from being paid during a government shutdown. So the resolution is pretty straightforward. It essentially states that if there is another shutdown, that the Senate just doesn't get paid. Now, keep in mind, this is one of several resolutions and bills that have been tossed around by lawmakers in order to find a way to stop the politicization of shutting the government down in order to get what you want, or at least having it being used as a leverage point. But anyway, I love Senator Kennedy. I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's going to go very far, though, because again, it's kind of like the whole Congress voting its own raises. They think they are doing such an absolutely fantastic job, and so why not get a raise? I mean, I would love to be able to walk into my boss's office and say, hey, I've been doing such a wonderful job this past couple of months. I deserve a raise. Yeah, that really ain't gonna fly in the real world. And so the thing about it is, though, is that Thune, even though he's been a real bastard when it comes to the SAVE Act and putting the SAVE Act up for a vote and getting rid of the filibuster in order to be able to pass the SAVE Act, in this one, he actually was a little bit, shall we say, devious, because he quietly set up that resolution to go for a vote when the Senate returned on Monday. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Now, Kennedy, of course, claims that he pushed Thune to put it in. And he says that, Thune did it. And I think he's a fine American. Now, I can't do a Kennedy impression because I don't think I can get the accent quite right. But that being said, well, you can just hear it in your head how Kennedy would have said that. Anyway. Also, Senator Eric Schmidt accused Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and the Democrats of being, quote, legislative terrorists who view political opportunity in forcing another closure. Now, there has been some talk about forcing another closure coming up here in the coming months because of the fact that they are looking to actually fund the government again, in particular ICE and the CBP. So, yeah. This is it. Yeah. Or it could also be over something else entirely, by the way, for it. So, yeah. Senator Ron Johnson has also been pushing his Shutdown Fairness Act, which would require that federal workers get paid during the shutdown. Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma has his own legislation called the Prevent Government Shutdowns Act, which would automatically fund the government for 2-week stretches until Congress could actually land on a compromise funding deal. Lankford told Fox News Digital, "We need to pass it so we never have a moment like this again." Now, keep in mind, all of this is following on the longest government shutdown in history. Anyway, he goes, "We will have disagreements. It's America, but we should not have federal workers programs that stop because we're having a disagreement. Let's have the fight, but let's keep going." All right. Let's take a quick look over at the chat. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm being told that Kennedy doesn't have an accent. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, somebody is having some chocolate chip. I don't know what that is all about, but anyway. All right. Let's see. Well, let's take a shift over from the east side of the country over to the west. We're going to head over to California. Yeah. Well, Karen Bass and her other Democrat opponent, is not doing very well they didn't do very well in the debates. The Republican, in particular, Republicans took them to the woodshed, per se. And anyway, the Democrats are starting to feel the heat One of them, of course, was Xavier Becerra. He apparently threw a fit over an interview that he was giving to KTLA, and he basically threw a fit over the nature of that interview. Obviously, Katie Porter has been pissed off because of some leaked video that was put out against her. And then, of course, there's the mayor's race that I was referring to, where Spencer Pratt took a striking chord with voters just by talking about common sense. Now, a lot of people believe that Spencer Pratt actually ran away with the mayoral race there. So that being said, neither one of the Democrat candidates wanted to, they didn't want to show up at another discussion panel, let's say, or maybe it was another debate. But anyway, now Spencer Pratt also, just to be clear, pulled out of this mayoral debate, but Mayor Karen Bass and Councilwoman Nithya Raman also backed out as well. Now, that left the debate organizers, the second debate organizers, with a little choice but to cancel that event. Now, that has actually ignited some frustration among Los Angelinos who wonder whether or not the city's leadership class can actually even handle basic exchange of ideas. Yeah, spoiler alert, socialists, leftists, lunatics, Marxists can't. Well, speaking of Karen Bass, she apparently made a really stupid statement. And just to kind of prove how out of touch these leftist Democrats continue to be, apparently Bass made a comment on Monday where she goes, how many people, now keep in mind, they're discussing health care for the homeless and to make the government pay for health care for the homeless. In this particular case, she said, how many people who are unhoused that you meet have no teeth at all? They don't have teeth. Why? Because meth rots your teeth. She goes, you can't succeed without teeth. So there needs to be comprehensive health care provided to people. Okay, I'm not exactly sure how she was able to jump that canyon to get to that point. But the reality of the situation is, why don't you treat their meth addiction first, lady? Why don't you treat their meth addiction first? And as a part of that, work on their teeth or other things. Yeah, that's a hell of a platform right there. Yeah, we're gonna work to get meth addicts' teeth. Yeah, I don't think they really care about it. Anyway, by the way, also keep in mind too that California's taxes are one of the highest in the nation. And then of course you're going to tell them you're going to tax them more so that you can get meth addicts' teeth. These people are so out of touch. They are just so out of touch with themselves in regards to all this. Well, speaking of another socialist, well, yeah. I know we talked about California. We're going to move north now. We're going to move north to my own home state of Washington. And in particular, the one large socialist city of Seattle. I remember when the whole idea of this wealth tax came into play. And of course, Washington is going to go ahead and cram it down on everybody. Well, right after that wealth tax initiative was announced and signed into law, and by the way, it's been taken to court because technically income taxes are against the state constitution. So this whole idea of this one-time wealth tax or whatever the hell it is I sometimes get Washington and California confused. They're like twins, only warmer in one case. But anyway, I digress. The Seattle mayor made a comment at one point where she was being talked to she was doing an interview, and she was asked about the wealth tax, and she basically said, oh, all the billionaires in my city, if they leave, okay, whatever, goodbye. Well, here's an example. Howard Schultz, who owns the premier coffee company, Starbucks. I call it premier because that's their belief. But anyway, I mean, Starbucks is international, and it does create, have a lot of coffee places all over the world. But the thing about it is that Howard Schultz is no slouch. And he actually left Seattle and moved to Florida. He also took the Seattle headquarters, at least a portion of the Seattle headquarters, and moved them to Tennessee. Now, the claim by the Starbucks, official claim by Starbucks, is that no, the headquarters will always stay in Seattle. However, I seriously question that. And especially I question that after Howard Schultz wrote an op-ed piece. Here, shown in this Fox News article, Starbucks actually goes and cuts jobs in Seattle as former CEO Howard Schultz blasts Seattle's socialist mayor. Now, keep in mind that socialist mayor, she's, I believe, in her 30s, has never held a real job, and as far as I know, and reports state that she may still live with her parents. She also got a significant amount of her money for her campaign from her parents. Not sure if she still lives with them, but I believe that's true. Anyway, he wrote an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. And in it, Howard Schultz points out Seattle's mayor, Katie Wilson, has chosen to cast business as a foil rather than a partner. He says her socialist rhetoric vilifies employers even while she continues to rely on them for revenue. See, this is part of the problem with the whole socialist thing. You sit there and complain about the billionaires. You complain about the businesses who are taking advantage of the workers, who complain about all this, yet you want to tax those same businesses. You want to tax those same billionaires. You want to tax those same people who've been funding your campaigns. This is the hypocrisy of the leftists. Anyway, he continues and says that she has encouraged residents who disagree with her policies to leave. Now, on Monday, Como News, which is a Seattle outlet, reported that Starbucks is laying off 61 employees due to the reorganization of its technology department at the corporate headquarters. Now, further on in this piece, he talks about in the March post on LinkedIn how Howard Schultz announced that he and his wife had moved to Florida for their retirement phase, leaving Washington state after almost half a century. While the March post did not actually mention the millionaire's tax, which would impose a 9.9% income tax on households earning more than $1 million each year, he did mention this in the Monday op-ed piece. He says, quote, "In the state capitol, the legislature and the governor have confronted difficult fiscal trade-offs by emphasizing taxation rather than reform or performance management." He says the theory appears to be that prosperity can be mandated through redistribution rather than generated through growth. Washington has a broken tax system, he says. Reliance on sales taxes, 10.55% in Seattle, is deeply regressive. The state needs to rewrite its tax code across the board in a way that ensures that people and businesses alike pay their share. See, this is the problem with the socialists. This is the problem with the Marxist idiots that are running around here that are winning, like the Mamdanis. that are winning in these races, because people do not understand the basics of economics 101, the basics of how our country actually works. And even in his op-ed, Schultz calls out other major companies, by the way. He points out that Microsoft and Amazon, which were once hiring engines, have actually slowed recruitment and reducing headcounts as they race to build data center capacity and compete globally. So then he also called out, by the way, he said that Starbucks recently announced it will shift hundreds of corporate roles to Tennessee. He wrote about that. Plus, you also have to consider, too, that Starbucks itself is appearing to lessen its presence in Seattle, saying in March that it would be closing 5 additional stores in the city, and that followed several closures during 2025, including the marquee Starbucks Reserve Roastery that was on Capitol Hill. Now, for those of you who have never been to one of those, it's kind of a bourgeois store that basically is like high end. They give you, coffee tastings. It's sort of, in a way, they patterned it after the idea of like a high end wine bar, let's just say. But anyway, Schultz continues and adds that these companies imported global talent at a scale for decades, meaning Microsoft and Amazon. He goes, anchoring an interconnected system of suppliers and startups. And as those businesses reduce their local roles, Seattle has no clear answer to the question of what will provide the next set of jobs and revenue growth. And realistically, there isn't any. There isn't any. And by the way, there was a recent survey of the Association of Washington Businesses that actually found that 44% of business leaders say they are considering moving their personal residence out of state, with businesses also saying that they are now more than twice as likely to expand outside of Washington rather than inside it. Now you tell me, which one is going to be more conducive to growth? Which one is going to be more conducive to growth? I would think being business friendly, like Texas and Florida are, not admonishing businesses, and especially the billionaires who fund those businesses, because it's the entrepreneurial spirit of the billionaires who actually create the businesses that are providing us with all of our jobs. And this is the part that the socialists and the Marxists don't understand. All right. Well, it has come to that time of the night. And if I can get her to come over here, we'll see if I can get her to come over here. But let's move on to tonight's pet of the week. Come on, Bella. Come here, Bella. Come on, sweetie. Come here. Where are you? Oh, goodness. I have a live one for you. Come here, come here, come here. Hi, come here. Quit running around. Come here. She came to me. Nope, gotcha. I got you this time. Here we go. All right, everybody. This is Bella. Bella is a Chihuahua mix. Now, obviously, she's not sized like a Chihuahua. She's a little bit bigger than a Chihuahua. And anyway, she is... Oh, she's 25 pounds, according to her owner over here. And Bella is about, a year and a half old. She's about a year and a half old. And believe me, she has got the energy for a year and a half old puppy. But this is the first, I think, live. No, it's not, because I've had Cleo on and in that, but it's not very often that I actually get one that's live. So yeah, there you go. This is tonight's pet of the week. Hi, sweetie. Yes. I know you didn't want to come over here, and now I'm holding you, and you're like all freaking out about it. Anyway, she's panting because it's quite warm here in Arizona. Anyway, so there you go. This is Bella, and Bella says hi to everybody. All right, girl. Here, I'll let you down. Ready? There you go. There you go. Oh, you're looking for the treats. All right, here. Okay, you were a good girl. Yes, there you go. Yep, here you go. Here's one more. There you go. Good girl. All right, go. Okay, everybody, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel on Rumble, even though Rumble's not working tonight. But search out the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget, on your way out, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, a thumb sideways or maybe one at an angle across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We'll see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.